Hey, what's up guys, my name is Chris, and the Apple event is over, and everything we predicted and all the rumors and all the speculations were true. So we were right about all the 2019 iPhone flagships, all three of them. So first of all, they mentioned the iPhone XS, which, like I mentioned in my previous video, is the upgraded iPhone X. So it's just the same size, the same stainless steel sides, frame, glass back and front, dual cameras at the back, the same exact iPhone X design, but now with upgraded specs. And then they announced the iPhone XS Max. And I have to say, I was kind of surprised with that name. I was going for maybe iPhone XS Plus or something, but it's the iPhone XS Max. So this one is a stretched out version of the iPhone XS. So it's everything on the iPhone XS, the glass back and front, stainless steel sides, dual cameras at the back, but now in a much bigger form factor. It's almost exactly the same size as the iPhone 8 Plus, but now the whole thing is a screen with a notch at the top. So it's a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED display. They're calling it the Super Retina Super AMOLED display. We'll see about that in the full review. But that's what it is. It's a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED display. And that's a huge display. I don't think people really understand how big that display is. The Note 9 is a 6.4-inch display. This one is a 6.5-inch display. So that's a huge iPhone. That is literally the biggest iPhone we've ever seen. And it's quite easily going to be a two-handed phone because, you know, it's that huge and it's glass at the front and the back. So you want to take extra care when you're using it. So more often than not, you're going to be using it with two hands. So that's right off the back. So these ones are going to be powered by the brand new A12 Bionic chip, which we're being told is much faster and more efficient than the A11 Bionic chip that we saw in iPhone X and iPhone 8 Plus last year. And given that those were the fastest processors we had seen on any smartphone to date, having an upgrade is kind of a nice thing. So it's going to be much faster and much more efficient and much more snappy than the iPhone X, which is great. And then you have 4 gigs of RAM inside these phones. And then for internal storage, we have 3 variants for both the XS and the XS Max. 64 gigs, 256 gigs, and 512 gig of internal storage for these phones. And of course, there's no expandable storage. It's classic Apple. The display being promised on these phones is going to be the Super Retina Super AMOLED display. Whatever that means, we're being told it's going to be an improved display, so it's going to be more colorful, brighter, the colors are going to pop more. Basically, we're expecting a better display on both these phones, the 6.5-inch for the XS Max and 5.8-inch for the XS. In the camera department, both these phones have the same setup, so they have a 12 megapixel wide-angle camera and a secondary 12 megapixel telephoto camera. So these ones are bigger sensors than the ones we saw in iPhone X. And we're also being told that there's going to be improved image processing on these phones. So there are 2 new technologies they mentioned. One is Smart HDR. And what Smart HDR does is when you take a photo, when that Smart HDR is turned on, the processor is able to work so fast, and so the camera is able to take several photos, and each photo is concentrating on something. So one is concentrating on color accuracy, the other one is dynamic range, the other one is bokeh, and the other one is doing that. So it takes like 8 different photos focusing on 8 different aspects of the photo you're taking. It stitches these 8 or 10 photos together and comes up with the best photo imaginable out of that scene. And all this is being enabled by the new beast inside those phones, the A12 Bionic chip. And then there's another image processing technology they're calling advanced bokeh. So you remember iPhone X and iPhone 8 Plus, and remember portrait mode and how awesome it was with that blurred background. So with advanced bokeh, they're taking it a notch higher. So what they're doing basically is making the depth of field adjustable after you take the photo. So when you adjust the depth of field, you can actually vary the amount of blur in the background with a slider. And that's really cool. I can't wait to see it in person. And then lastly, they unveiled the iPhone XR. And if you watched my last video, I was talking about a new budget iPhone, the cheaper iPhone, more affordable iPhone. And I was right about everything about that phone except the name. It's not the iPhone 9, it's the iPhone XR. This one is a 6.1-inch LCD display, and they're calling it the Liquid Retina LCD display, which they're promising is a better display, better than what we saw in iPhone 8 Plus. And I'm kind of worried about the pixel density. I saw it was around 326 ppi. I have to see it in person to know exactly what you're working with here, but according to Apple, it's the best LCD display we have ever seen. It's an infinity display that stretches out from corner to corner with that notch up at the top. of course with Face ID, and the same identical front-facing camera like the one in iPhone XS and XS Max. I'm still trying to get used to those names. And also at the back, like we predicted in my previous video, it's a single camera, a 12 megapixel camera sensor, the exact same wide angle camera we have in the XS and the XS Max, and all the processing power and all the image processing is still the same as the one in the iPhone XS and the XS Max. It has the same A12 Bionic chip, it has 4 gigs of RAM, but internally it has 64 gigs, 128 gigs, and then 256 gigs of internal storage. That's why it maxes out. So that was basically it with the announcements of the new iPhones. iPhone XS, which is basically an improved version of iPhone X. Then you have the iPhone XS Max, which is a big iPhone X. And then you have the iPhone XR, which is supposed to be the cheaper iPhone or the budget iPhone. And it's kind of weird because Tim Cook and his boys went on stage and called it the iPhone for everyone. And at $750, it's a cheaper iPhone, but it's not a budget phone by any means at $750 really. You've seen the Poco phone and all these new emerging phones like the OnePlus going at $300 and $500 respectively with totally high-end specs. It's really going to be interesting to see how this iPhone XR fares in the market, because for me, people who are ready to buy iPhones, people who buy these iPhones, they are very expensive iPhones, and I feel like people who are ready to buy iPhones have no problem spending the extra $200 or $300 to get the bigger and better iPhone XS Max or something. It's kind of a tricky situation Apple got themselves into there, but we're going to see. The one thing that slightly concerned me at the Apple event was how they were not able to talk about battery capacity in milliamperes. All they talked about was full day battery. They talked about an extra 1.5 hours of battery life. Whose battery are they talking about? I use my phone differently from how Tim Cook uses his phone and how anybody else uses their phone. We're all different and we use our phones differently. So that was a little bit sticky for me there. They also announced dual SIM for the first time ever in iPhone history. But this is not your normal dual SIM, dual physical SIM card slots in your smartphone kind of dual SIM. The electronic SIM card is built into the phone's firmware by the carrier that you're going to buy the phone from, and so that you can have dual standby SIM cards even with one physical SIM card inside the phone. The pricing of these phones was interesting. The cheapest iPhone announced yesterday was the iPhone XR, which is that LCD phone, the budget iPhone, which starts at $750. That is the most expensive budget phone I have ever seen in my life, but it's a budget iPhone, so $750 for the base model, and it goes all the way up to about $1,000 for the 256 gig variant. And then you have iPhone XS, which is the improved iPhone X, and that one is going for $1,000 at the base model. And then you have iPhone XS Max, which starts at $1,100. So these are expensive iPhones, and this is what we've gotten used to from Apple. They want to keep their brand and their iPhones at a premium level, even as other phones, especially in the Android market, are going in the opposite direction price-wise. iPhone is still maintaining their high prices and their premium status in the smartphone industry. So anyway, basically that's it. Can't wait for the full review. Can't wait to get those phones in my hands and really test those cameras out and the processor out. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Until the next one, my name is Chris, and don't forget to subscribe.